Hello. Finally getting into video 2 here, and I wanted to mention this fairly early in the video in case people don't want to watch it all the way to the end. But essentially, there's a country western singer from the 70s. His name was C.W. McCall, and he actually did a couple. Well, he did a lot of songs. His songs were more like, I don't want to say rap, but he was the original fast-talking, telling a story type country singer. And he's talking through the whole song, and essentially he's telling a story. Most of his stuff was anywhere from 1974 to 78. And when I was young and my parents were, we used to listen to him and really liked him. Now, it's not that I'm a country western fan necessarily. I usually actually prefer rock and roll, but truth must be known. But essentially, he's anybody else, might be interested in those songs. The two that seem to be related to Jeeps per se. One of them is a song called Four Wheel Drive. He's got his CJ5, and I guess he hits a speed trap doing 67 per. And essentially he tries to run away from the cop, and it's a chase. And nearest I can tell, the Jeep must have a V8, because he says he's got a 4x carb or something like that. Smokey, which is what they referred to him a lot back in the day, has a Ford, but is stroked and bored, and the chase is on, all that kind of thing. And essentially he's just telling the story about how he's being chased and everything that happens with that happening. It's a kind of cool little song. Another one is it's called Black Bear Road. He calls it an army Jeep car that he rents from a guy named Kabasi or something like that. And I'm kind of reading into it, but essentially I'm assuming it's probably a surplus Jeep, probably, what was the military version of CJ5? Like an M38A1, something like that. You guys would probably know better than me, but I'm assuming that's what it was. And anyway, they're trying to take a shortcut to Telluride, but the shortcut is Black Bear Road, and all kinds of stuff goes wrong, and it sounds like it's him, his wife RJ, and the kids and the dog, and so on. So it's a couple of interesting songs you might look up on the iTunes or whatever music source you use. But he was pretty popular for a while. I think his biggest song was Convoy, because he has various songs about trucking and stuff like that too. And so you older people may remember him, and if you don't know who he is, it might be worth looking up. Because Silverton Train and all kinds of stuff that he sang. But anyway, we'll get back to it. Thank you. Well, here we go. Finally getting to video number 2 here. I'm talking a little louder because of last time people couldn't really hear me. Plus there's wind, so you're probably trying to hear over the wind. Anyway, I finally got into video number 2. There's been a number of things that have delayed that. Probably what I'll do is get the camera off at the tripod and talk a little closer to it so you can hear me. But essentially, here we go. Okay, we're back. I got the camera on the tripod. I don't know, hopefully the wind is so bad. I'm not sure why. Move it there a little bit. Anyway, part of the reason it's taken so long is from the last video, it took a week to even get it into the shop. Once it was in the shop, it was in the shop for 3 weeks, getting the work done. Then there was, before I got it back from the shop and after I got out of the shop, unfortunately my mother had a medical emergency, so me and my dad had to deal with that at least for a couple weeks. Then got it back, and it still had the noise, the infamous noise in the front, which turned out to be something else. But anyway, there, as I had mentioned, this Iron Duke 151 2.5 liter typically have a plastic cam gear that wears out, and that causes noise. Typically doesn't wear out until after, there's the wind. Typically doesn't wear out until, well, talk a little louder, hopefully talk over it. It doesn't typically wear out until after 80,000. Now the Jeep's only got 67 on it, but I kind of wanted to get ahead of it because maybe it was wearing out early or something. Well, when they finally got into it, they said the gear doesn't look bad at all. You know, in fact, this is the gear. Of course, they say it broke when they took it off, but essentially that's the truth. It's not worn out really at all. But I told them, well, since you got it apart, you might as well just go ahead and put a new one in. I don't want to have 100,000 or more, and all of a sudden it does go bad or break. But anyway, once they got into it, then they said, oh, well, by the way, the lifters are wearing excessively, and thus the cam probably is too. And I don't know if you can see that, but they are pitted, which I'm not sure why with this low mileage. It's had to reasonably good oil changes, why they'd be pitted, but they are. So I guess it's a good thing that we had them get into it, because I wouldn't have had any idea the cam and lifters were wearing out prematurely. The cam doesn't look too bad, except that lobe's a little worn, and then this one's fairly worn here. It's I don't know, there again, the camera, but it's definitely got some wear on it. So I guess it's a good thing we did get into it. So I had them do that along with some other maintenance thing, hoses and spark plug wires and stuff. Well, anyway, got it home, and it's just making as much noise as ever. It sounds horrible. I'm like, what in the world? So, okay, so let's go back to basics. So I took all the belts off and ran it, just the crankshaft turning, nothing else was turning, and voila, the noise, it's gone completely. I'm like, what in the world? And then the noise started to come back. I'm like, how could it be gone for 10 seconds and then it's back? And then for whatever reason, I grabbed a hold of the fan and it stopped again. But then I noticed the fan, clunk, 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 clunk. You can move it back and forth and clunk and clunk and clunk. And, well, evidently the water pump's worn out. Now, for whatever unknown reason, it was not leaking, but you could move it back quite a bit, you know, the fan pump. So anyway, I went ahead and got a water pump for it, which, so here's the old one, and I don't know if you can, let's see. Yeah, you're not going to see the movement on the video, but maybe you can hear that. So anyway, the water pump was worn out. Now, of course, it was just in the shop, but I think the way the approach they took to working with it, it must have had it on a lift, and they were doing everything from underneath, and the water pump sits above the crankshaft, of course, so they never even looked at it, because for whatever reason, it was not leaking. For as worn out as it is, it was not leaking. That's why I didn't know anything about it. That's why they didn't look. So I got it back and found out I needed a water pump. So I went ahead and put a new water pump on it. Now you're probably asking, you know, hey Chief, why didn't you check that before you took it in? Well, I had checked it probably as long as 2 years ago, where I'd done that, taken the belts off and ran it, and I still heard the noise. The only thing I can think of is I'm either thinking I did and I didn't. I'm 59, I'm getting some years, first memory's the first thing to go. But another thing I'm thinking is maybe, like I said, when I first started it, it was quiet for 10 seconds and then started making a rattle noise. I'm like, maybe that's what maybe back then it started doing it from the very beginning. And that's why, and I heard it rattling, and back then I didn't grab a hold of the fan and start, rattling it back and forth to see if it was loose or not, because there again, it wasn't leaking, still wasn't leaking, So anyway, so that's part of the reason it's taken so long to even get into a second video. So anyway, for this video, this is about all I'm going to do. I kind of wanted to explain what took so long, mention C.W. McCall, and now the next one I'm actually going to do some driving around and stuff, and I'm going to try to show you some pictures. I got Dad to find me some pictures from when it was brand new, and literally the first month after he got it in September of '81. These are like pictures from October of '81, but I got to kind of scan them in as best I can because they're Polaroids and so forth. But anyway, that's all I can think of that I was going to go over right now. So there again, like, subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time.